Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Zuri Obi, Film and Conference Programmer at the New Orleans Film Society. Welcome to our very first virtual panel of 2025, Submissions 101, where we detail our submissions and screening process, as well as share best tips and practices and important dates for those interested in submitting to the New Orleans Film Festival. I'm joined by my colleagues and core year-round programming staff. I'll let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what they do on our team. Clint, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you, Zuri. Excited to be here. My name is Clint Bowie. I'm the artistic director of the New Orleans Film Society, and I head up our programming. That includes our submissions-based programming, films with distribution, and I also head our the department that oversees our filmmaker services, which is led by our colleague Marin Scott, who's not on this call.
Thank you, Clint.
Hi, I'm Tishon Pugh, and I'm the Programming and Community Coordinator here at the New Orleans Film Society. And I help lead all of our volunteer screener groups. I interface with all of our programming related correspondence in our NOFF main email. And I do help manage all filmmaker asset submissions when we do eventually get accepted into our festival.
Thank you for those introductions. And yes, as Film and Conference Programmer, I'm not only in charge of programming all of the conference engagements and the virtual panels, I also lead some of the screening teams for our major categories: documentary, experimental, short films, narrative, pretty much wherever we need help, my eyes are on it. So I'm really happy to be here and for us to gather to share some really great tips about submitting to our festival. And with that, let's get into why we're here, Submissions 101. So for those that don't know anything about New Orleans Film Festival, which I hope it's very few of y'all, Clint, can you give us just a very brief history overview about the film festival, our identity, our mission, and just some really cool, I guess, facts that can help folks get to know who we are as a film society at a festival.
Sure. So we're in our 36th annual year. The festival usually takes place in October. We were in November for a few years post-pandemic, but back to slot in late October. This year, our dates are going to be October 23rd through the 28th. The festival is a general regional festival. And what I mean by that is we don't have a specific interest in niche programming. So we are open to any and all types of films and from all over the world. We are particularly interested in films from our locale. So our New Orleans filmmakers, filmmakers from our region, our part of the country in particular. But we also welcome films from New York, from Montana, from Hawaii, from South Africa, from France, all over the world. We are happy to consider films if you are making them in any part of the world. So we have a team of usually around 18 programming staffers who are involved in the submissions process. In addition to the three of us, there are 15 other people who we bring on contract staff to program. And we have a core of volunteers who number about 70 who also participate in the process. The festival has really gained a great reputation. We've consistently been named one of the 50 film festivals worth the entry fee by Movie Maker magazine, which we're really proud of. And I think that beyond accolades from other publications, I feel like our reputation within the communities we inhabit, that reputation is really solid. I think that we've come to mean something very important to our filmmaking community, both here in New Orleans and beyond. And the festival has certainly become more than just a collection of screenings. We see it as a convening of audiences, of filmmakers, of industry, to really forge important connections that help advance storytelling and advance just a culture of moviegoing and cinema appreciation.
Yeah, I hear a lot of folks refer to our festival more of like it's an international festival with like local vibes. So yeah, thank you for just like recapping all of that. And just to remind y'all, our festival is happening this year, October 23rd to the 28th. So please write that down. So yeah, so now that we know a little bit more about the festival, who we are, our history, let's get into submissions and some of the things that we're going to need before we get into our kind of like group discussion. So what are some important dates to keep in mind in terms of submitting some of the films? I know we just missed our early deadline, but there's some deadlines coming up. So Tishon, like, what are some dates that we need to be aware of? And, maybe just share some tips for us as far as like making sure that we're on it with our submissions this year.
Thank you, Zuri and Clint. We just missed our early deadline back in January on the 24th, but not to worry, we have plenty of other deadlines coming up. So our regular deadline will be March 7th. Our late deadline is April 25th. Our extended deadline is May 30th, and then our notification date is set for August 14th. Now, I will say with each deadline, that means that our submission fees will increase ever so slightly. So if you definitely want to pinch some pennies and try and save some extra money, I would suggest submitting as soon as you can before March 7th, because like I said, afterwards, it's going to get a little bit more expensive. But either way, we still want to see your film, so submit whatever you absolutely can. And we do have submissions open for 5 different categories, and that is narrative feature, documentary feature, animated shorts, experimental shorts, and narrative shorts. We get a wide array of so many different films from so many different filmmakers, and it's always really exciting to see. And so we do encourage you to look at our past lineups if you're ever considering whether or not your film is to be in the lineup, or like where exactly do you fit in. I would highly recommend looking at some of our other submissions from the previous years, just to get a sense of like who we are and the types of voices that we do help to amplify.
I'd also like to mention, Tishon, you rolled out those submission dates, and I feel like we get a lot of questions about when should I submit? Like, does it matter if I wait until the last deadline to submit, or should I submit during the early bird? Is there any, does that factor into my chances of getting in? And from my perspective, the answer is completely no. I mean, sometimes you might even submit in January, but just given the process and the randomization of how we're assigned films, we might not even be able to see your film until May. So it doesn't matter at all, when you submit during that window, whether it's early bird, regular, late, or late. That system is simply in place to incentivize people to submit earlier so that we can start our process earlier. It's really important for us to be able to get through so many submissions to start as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Clint. Submitting earlier is going to help us out. And also, if you want to save a little bit of money, so submitting earlier can be very helpful. But for those who are strapped for cash, and no matter when you're submitting, what are some, I guess, things that are available to help folks who are either having financial burdens, or, are there waivers available for folks to submit? Like, can we talk about that? Because I know that we get a lot of questions, especially now with filmmakers being strapped for cash, like a lot of us. So Tishon, can you go over some of the waiver system? Who qualifies for a waiver? How do I get a waiver? Yeah, let us know.
Yeah. So I will say there are 2 different types of waivers, quote unquote, but there is an entry fee waiver, and then there is a discount. So I do get a lot of emails of people asking for an entry fee waiver when in reality, they're just asking me for a discount code. So I want to establish that these are 2 totally different things. And what I mean by that is, like, when we have an entry fee waiver, that means that it's waiving the entire fee so that you don't have to pay anything to submit your film. And we usually push that for our alums. So if you are an alum of the film festival itself, if you had something that is screened recently within the past 10 years, which is great, you're more than welcome to reach out to us in our email and ask for an entry fee waiver, because we love to support our previous filmmakers, and we're excited to see the new works that you're bringing to audiences. As well as we do give entry fee waivers to those who are alumni of our Filmmaker Services program. So that means Emerging Voices Lab, the Producers Lab, as well as South Pitch. If you participated in any of those labs, I do believe also within the last 10 years, you do also qualify for an entry fee waiver, which means no charge. Moving on to the other side of discount waivers, we do offer those for folks who are a part of any other underrepresented voices and communities, as well as some sanctioned countries too. We do have discount codes for film students as well. There's just like a wide array of folks that we're happy to support. And if you have any questions about that, if you are asking to receive either of those discounts or waivers, we do ask that you email us at noff@neworleansfilmsociety.org, not .com. If you .com it, we will not get it. Our email's on the Film Freeway page too, in case you forget. But just send that email there. I'm the person that checks all of those emails and I respond to every single one of them. And so I'd be happy to help you figure out which entry fee waiver or discount code is right for you.
And I guess going back on, Clint, what Clint was saying earlier in terms of like timeliness, does it matter when I ask for a code? Does it work out if I ask earlier, later? What do you recommend, Tishon?
I mean, I just say ask when you think you need it, definitely. But I will say if you're going to ask for it, that you use it right when you ask for it. We do have some that may expire a little bit earlier than others. And so I just ask that if you feel like you're ready to submit, you're ready to click send, you send that email, you're asking me for a discount, that you're ready to use it then. Instead of sitting on it and waiting on it. We've had people that have asked for a waiver and then a year later, they're like, hey, this code doesn't work anymore. And I'm like, well, that was for last year. So I just say if you're completely ready to submit your film and you think, okay, well, maybe I'll reach out and see if I can get a little discount or something, we're happy to do that. Just be sure that you're ready to use it right then. And it doesn't matter at what point in the terms of the deadlines that you ask. If you asked during early deadline, regular deadline, extended deadline, just as long as you're ready to actually submit your film when you ask.
Nice, thank you for that, Tishon. Clint, let's go back to categories. I know that you've mentioned that we're an Oscar qualifying festival. Can you go through all of our categories again and then point out which ones are Oscar qualifying?
Sure. We've got two feature categories, doc feature and narrative feature. And then in addition to that, narrative shorts, animated shorts, documentary shorts, and experimental shorts. 3 of those shorts categories are Oscar qualifying. So what that means is if you win the jury prize in one of those categories, you're automatically eligible to be nominated for an Academy Award. It doesn't mean you're going to be nominated, but you're eligible. There's some really intense criteria for how to even become eligible for nomination, and this is one of the pathways. If you win the jury prize at our festival in a category for narrative short, documentary short, or animated short, that will allow that eligibility. For example, a couple of years ago, we showed the film A Love Song for Latasha by Sophia Nali Allison, and that film won the jury award at our festival, which greenlit it to become eligible, and it did end up receiving an Oscar nomination. So we were really proud to have been part of that film's journey on its Oscar run.
Yeah, I love Sophia, love her work. Just so excited just to be part of that journey. And we get a lot of submissions from filmmakers who ask us, in addition to the categories that we went through, do y'all accept music videos, episodic, like other things? Like, Tishon, can we have like an official answer on that? Or like Clint and Tishon, either one. We get a lot of dance films, a lot of like music related things.
Yeah.
Do we have them?
I will say, while we don't have a specific category for music videos or for episodic content or films, if you feel that, for example, let's say I'm doing a documentary short series, if you feel like the pilot itself is good enough to stand on its own and that it can be its own thing, and you feel very strongly about it, you feel very confident in it, I would suggest submitting to the documentary shorts category. I think at the end of the day, whichever category you feel best works for your film, that is the best category for you to submit it to. I mean, we have had animated films that have had musical components to it, experimental films that also had musical components, or I kind of felt like there could be more after this. So I think at the end of the day, whatever category you feel most confident in, that is where you should be submitting it. Although we don't have a specific category for music videos or for episodics.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think a lot of people had questions about that. Now, okay, so we went through the categories. We have a little overview about the waiver process, deadlines and dates. Now I'm wondering, after I submit my film, what's my competition like? How many submissions do you accept average, and how many do you select? I don't know, Clint, if you want to get into that a little bit more.
Sure. On average, we receive around 4,000 submissions. That number has been higher some years, it's been lower some years, but that's on average what we expect to receive. And that is across all categories. So that's short films and feature films combined. And of those, we typically select around 140. Sometimes the number is a little more, sometimes it's less. It just depends on the year. Our dates, the number of screens. It ultimately, we are confined by the parameters of the festival itself. So the number of screening venues we have, the number of days the festival runs, and just our general staff and organizational capacity to not just screen the films, but caretake for the filmmakers and the artists who are part of those films. So generally speaking, around 4,000 films we're expecting, and we'll select around 140.
Like harder to get into the festival than Harvard, it seems like. But yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. So, okay, I am a filmmaker. I want to submit. I got it in the queue. As a filmmaker, what can I expect to, or can you at least explain to us how you work with distribution channels, sales agents, ways to help my film's life extend?
Sure, I can speak to that. Our priority is with independent filmmakers, and those who are submitting directly for consideration through our primary platform, which is Film Freeway. Uh, Film sales companies, agents, distributors are welcome to share films with us outside of that platform by emailing us, but we cannot guarantee that we will review those films or that we will have the capacity to even turn around an answer to those films. Our priority, as I said, is with those films that are submitted directly through our Film Freeway platform. We do, however, directly curate and work with some distributors on securing some high-profile films that we refer to as our spotlight films that typically garner a lot of media attention, bring some general audience interest in the festival with the hope that it will also bring additional attention to all the films in our festival. So an example of these include Conclave, for example, and Amelia Perez, which we worked with Netflix to show, and All Dirt Road's Taste of Salt, for example, which we showed last year in partnership with A24. So those arrangements take place through negotiations directly with distributors. It is rare that a sales agent or a distributor will blindly send us a film unsolicited that we end up having a chance to view and accept. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm not going to say it has never happened, but we curate the large majority of our festival directly through submissions that come from Film Freeway and through negotiations that we solicit from distributors.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically, if I want to guarantee that my film is going to be watched, I should go through Film Freeway and not just assume a distributor is gonna get it done.
Absolutely. We also, and Tishon, you could speak to this too, but we get quite a few emails from filmmakers with just the link to their film in the email and asking us to consider it that way. And the reality is we just don't have a process. My inbox is a black hole to begin with. So chances are, I mean, it's just going to get lost. We don't have a process in place that allows us to track submissions that do not come through that formal process of Film Freeway. And again, if there's an issue of not being able to pay a submission fee, we're happy to try to meet you where you're at. And you can email noff@neurosociety.org and have that conversation with Tishon about what a discount or a waiver could look like. But in terms of just sending us a submission through email, we just are not equipped to be able to manage submissions in that way. I mean, we also get submissions from film schools directly. And Tishon, I know you work with film schools to help facilitate that. So maybe you could speak to that process.
I think that please don't send anything to our emails, specifically to the NOFF email that is like the main email. So we get quite like hundreds of emails that come through every week. And like I said, I'm the sole person that's going through and I'm looking at everything and I'm trying to reply to everything. So that means that if I see your email and you have a link at the bottom of your email, I may look like I see the link then, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go back later and like watch it and then give you feedback on it. Because if I do that for one person, I have to do that video. There's several hundred people who are asking me to do the same thing. And because programming is bigger than just me, programming is bigger than just Zuri and Clint. Like there's a whole team of filmmakers and programmers and folks from all over who help us make these final decisions. And so it really just wouldn't be right for someone to send their film to just me. And if it's something that I maybe don't understand, or maybe it's not a part of my culture or something, and I just, it's not helpful. So definitely, please don't send us any of your films in your emails. It's just better to send everything through Film Freeway, which is why we have it in place in the first place. And in terms of film schools and film students, we do get a lot of emails from film students who are trying to submit their films, as well as film schools in general who do submit like a slew of films from their students. So if you are a film school student and you're trying to figure out how to submit your film, I would definitely before you do that as like an independent filmmaker, I would definitely check with your school and your advisory board, any professors you might know, and ask to see if they have a designated person whose job it is to send your films out to festivals. I do work with quite a few film schools who have a designated like festival manager whose whole job, like I said, is to just figure out where to get discount codes from so that they can send to their students. And then they might even do the work of actually submitting everything through Film Freeway for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So I would definitely check to make sure that's an option first. And if that's not an option, then definitely reaching out. We can definitely help you with a discount code and having your film submitted through Film Freeway. And I will also state, because this is a question that I get a lot, we do not have a specific category for student films. So your film, whether it's an animated film, a documentary, short, feature, it will be considered in those respective categories. That was a lot.
No, that was perfect. Thank you for that information. So let's harp on emails a little bit, because email is like 99.9% of our jobs, right? What about some of the filmmakers who not only submit through Film Freeway officially and go through the proper channels, who in addition to that send an email with their press kit, with all of the things, the links? How effective is that in helping me just get noticed, helping me just rise to the top in terms of what are y'all looking at and like screening? Like, how should I consider that? And anyone could take that.
Yeah, I can start, and Tishon, if you have something to add. I feel like emailing me a press kit is not really valuable to your chances of your film getting in. And for a number of reasons. One is that I'm not viewing your film when you're sending me the email. And again, I cannot approach the submissions process by viewing films directly from email. So I'm never going to do that. We all are randomized, assigned email films through Film Freeway. Chances of me even viewing the film that you are emailing me about are unlikely, given how many of us there are in the process. And I'm not going to disrupt that process that we create. Like, I'm not, if I get an email, even if it's something that seems really interesting to me and I'm excited by it, I'm not going to disrupt the process we create and take that film from someone else's assignment if it's not assigned to me and watch it. I'm going to trust our process and trust that the other people who it's assigned to will give it the consideration that it's due. I always love reading like information about you know, who the filmmaker is, why they made this film, their director's statement, any of that information that comes from the press kit. But the appropriate place to share that is within Film Freeway and within that formal application. When I'm in, when I'm locked in viewing submissions, I read every cover letter word from start to finish. I look at every bit of information that you're willing to share. In some categories, we do have custom questions, and we ask that you take those seriously and provide as much information and go as in-depth as possible, because we take all of that very seriously. It's not just an investment in the film itself, but it's an investment in the artist and the team who's telling the story. When it comes down to, you know, very, you know, close decisions where we've got 60 finalist short films in one category, and we have to pare that down to 15, 20 films, we're looking at all of these different factors, you know, like anything you can tell us in your director's statement or about the kinds of films that you want to be telling after this one, or what your team was like, or, you know, where you're from, or, you know, all of that really helps to paint a more fuller portrait of not just the film, but the whole production. And we're interested in all of that.
Yeah, I will say personally, I agree. You know, I do, we all get a lot of emails, but I feel like the most impactful place to put all the information is in Film Freeway, because we're able to like watch the films and look at all of the accompanying material that goes with it, you know, and I feel like, you know, if I'm not assigned the film, it doesn't matter if you're my friend or not, if you reached out to me, I'm not watching it because I have too much to watch already. So yeah, I just want to agree with you on that. Tishon, do you have anything to add to that?
Mm, not necessarily. I think Clint said it all. Like anything that we get in an email is very fleeting. It's very easy for things to get lost in an email. I think all of our emails are black holes essentially at this point, especially during submissions, because everyone's, you know, everyone's trying to, I wouldn't say one up each other, but they're trying to make themselves stand out. And, you know, I feel like you can't really do that in an email. Like, I want to be able to see that in your film. I want to be able to see that in your director's statement, and let your work at this point, once you hit submit, let your work do the talking for you. And then, you know, you can worry about everything else after that. But yeah, I think once you've submitted your film, I think that is you trusting yourself, trusting your work to do that talking for you, and allow it to do that, you know, because there are people who will email and email and email and email. And I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, you know, and I get associated with your film in not like a great way. And I want to be able to watch your film sight unseen, with no sort of, oh, well, I just want you to watch this part and I want you, what do you think about this? Like, I don't want any of that. I want to be able to just um, enjoy your film the way that you made it to be enjoyed. So let your film do the talking. You don't need to send an email. I promise. I pinky promise it's okay.
I want to add one thing, and it's a comment I hear from a lot of filmmakers, because we're advocates for, you know, filmmakers ourselves, and when we see a film that we really want to support, we try to advocate for it in whatever way we can. So I understand that the inclination to email a programmer and advocate for a film, and certainly we've done that, but I feel like what I hear from a lot of filmmakers is, I'm not going to get accepted into this or that film festival unless I know a programmer, or unless I have a relationship with that festival, or I know the person making the decision. And the reality, and I can only speak for our practices and for like how we approach this process, but it's not the case. I mean, we have accepted films. I mean, the large majority of films that we accept year to year are from complete strangers, people we've never heard of and never met. And on the flip side, we have had to make the very difficult decision to not accept films from individuals who we are very close to. We are part of the larger filmmaking community. Some of us are filmmakers, some of us are, you know, just having been in this space for so many years, we have relationships with people who continue to submit. And, you know, we're not, that does not color our decisions one way or another. I mean, we're people, we have our biases, but the beauty of our process is that these are collective decisions that we're making. I don't single-handedly make a decision on films. I make it in concert with a larger team, people who may or may not know who you are, people who may or may not know your background or other films that you've made. And so Whether or not my biases that may be connected to someone I know come into play, they will hopefully be checked by others on the team who don't share those same biases and bring about more of a leveling of that field to the process.
Yeah, and like I feel like the longer we're in this role too, the more friends we have, right? So it's like we can't let all the homies in. We would love to. We love old friends, but we also love new friends too. And that's what keeps our festival going and fresh. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. So awesome. I know the deadlines. I know how to get a waiver. I know the best way to email or not email and present my film. And I've submitted it. Now what are the steps that my film goes through, whether it's a short, like Clint, I'll let you outline shorts, and Tishon, you can outline featured, but what can I expect in terms of the journey from submission to notification? What's that process like? If y'all can give me a little bit of a little sneak
Sure.
peek.
Yeah, I'll start with shorts. So once you've submitted, your film will be assigned to a programmer, and that programmer will be working with a small group of volunteer screeners. And these screeners work with us to provide their insight, their input into the films. They represent all types. We've got filmmakers who've had films in the festival before. We have film professors. We have casual film goers, people who've been to the festival and just really enjoy the process. We have strangers we've never met who live in other countries. It is a really diverse body of people who share their feedback on the films. And we take that feedback into consideration when we're deciding whether a film will advance in the process or not. So shorts will be assigned to a small group. That's a programmer working with volunteer screeners. That group will meet periodically throughout the submission cycle to talk about the films that they're viewing and basically make decisions about whether a film will advance in that process or not. If a film does advance, then it will then be seen by anywhere from 3 to 6 other members of the programming team. And basically, that same process will occur at that stage where we'll all watch the films, get together, have a discussion about each film, and decide which films then advance. All decisions are made through group discussions. I mentioned the collective approach, and that is certainly an important part of this process. No one person is making a decision about a film. Films get watched by multiple people. And in the short space, everything gets discussed as a group before a decision is made. Features work a little bit differently, and I'll let you talk about that, Tishon.
Differently. And I do want to dispel two other myths as well. The one where I don't know why I keep hearing it, but people are like, college, your film is in the hands of college kids. And it's like, I don't even know if we have any college kids on our volunteer screening groups. Not that it matters, but this is a wide array of people who just like movies and enjoy movies. And I mean, we've had volunteers who've been with us for like well over a decade and then some. And so these are the people that we really trust to help us make these decisions. And also, I think maybe Clint might have said it as well, is that like no one person is watching your film and deciding on your film. This is like it's a whole team, and we are having discussions for hours. And I mean hours.
How many, like, just give folks an idea, how many eyes in terms of like volunteer screeners and programmers will see? Or, let us know how many screeners we have typically on our staff so that folks can know the breadth of who is watching our films.
So I want to say last year we had 70 volunteer screeners. And if you have a short film, I would say about 10 or so volunteer screeners will watch. And then if it gets passed up, then at least half of our programming team, which I think last year we had close to 20 people on our programming team, including us. So at least half of those people are also watching your film. So your film is viewed well over 20 and then sometimes repeatedly by one person. In terms of features, and I will talk about featured screenings as well, we do have a select group of volunteer screeners who will watch our features, and their commentary will go directly to a programmer. So they do skip out on that group sharing session with other screeners, but their feedback will go right to a programmer. And then from there, if it gets passed up, it will go to many other programmers. But I will say, at the barest minimum, your film will be seen by at least 5 to 10 people. And that's just at like the basic like level of watching films at the start.
Yeah, I think that's very important to kind of reiterate that we go through many different people from many different backgrounds that have various tastes in their films. And, you know, some of our group sessions are very endearing slugfests, but in terms of just being very passionate and really standing up for your film. And at the end of the process, it really is a consensus. It's not like one person who has a leg up and the other who has connections or anything like that. And I think that's really something I valued about being on the team, is that everyone truly has a voice. And that, you know, at the end, when we look at our lineup, it's something that we stand behind and we're very proud of, because we come together to really figure out what we're responding to as a group and not just individually. So thank you for saying that.
You say the word consensus, Zuri, and I just want to qualify that, you know, this is when anytime you're approaching something collectively with a lot of different voices in the mix, not everyone is going to get their way with every film. You know, there are films that, you know, we each individually fall in love with and champion and, you know, go to the bat for, and we're really advocating strongly to be part of the festival, but, you know, don't always win out. And so we all agree on, when we leave those meetings, we agree to the films that we are selecting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, all of us are 100% in on every film, or that there are amazing films that we have to leave behind, unfortunately. So consensus is one of those words that always trips me up, because I feel like it makes it seem like the process is so much neater and cleaner than it really is, when it's super messy. I mean, like you said, it is an endearing slugfest sometimes where we are fighting over films, and that process can sometimes, you know, be really disappointing to people who are championing a film that doesn't quite make it. And yeah, so to feel like a consensus, it's you know, sometimes you walk away like not feeling like this was a consensus, but what it is a commitment to the collective voice in this process.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because, you know, very rare. I think if we all agreed, then something would be wrong, right? But yeah, no, thank you for clarifying that. And speaking of messy, right? I feel like since the beginning of our virtual panel, we've been talking about brass tacks, you know, in terms of like hardline dates and things that are fixed. Now let's get into the messy, right? Like, what makes, I guess, and this is a very personal question, what makes a good film? Like, how do you determine individually if a film is a good fit? What do you look for personally in submissions? And we can start with you, Tishon.
Oh no. What I look for. So our festival, I think out of all of the categories, we get a lot of films and narrative shorts. And we do get a lot of like very dramatic films, sometimes very serious films, films about things that matter. And it's coming from people who are directly impacted by said circumstances or situations. So in that, I've always been one person that's looked at life with a glass half full. And so to that, I want to experience all of the complexities of being a human and being an artist. And I look for things that bring joy and that stand out, and things that don't really fit in the mold of what you would typically see in a movie. And so I'm very into genres. I always stress and want more of like horror films, and like give me a musical, give me a hard sci-fi. Like I want to see all of these things, because I know sometimes filmmakers may feel like, well, if I made a film about this, then that will get me into this film festival, because this is the kind of films that they submit. And it's like, no, I want to hear from you specifically, like, what story do you want to tell? And if you can tell that story in your voice, I should be able to see that from the first 5 minutes that I'm watching it. And that sells me. And I also am drawn to people who know what they want to do, and maybe they're not exactly there, but you can tell that they're trying and that they have that potential and that they really want to do it. And maybe for whatever reason, something just didn't work out. And I've come across so many great filmmakers who I make sure to keep tabs on, because I'm like, well, you know, this film was great. And even though it didn't get in, like, I'm not really worried, because I'm excited to see what they're going to do next. And I know that I'm probably going to meet them at this festival or that festival. And so I really love just like zany, kooky, out there films I can commit to the bit. I love, and then films from people who are trying to say something and maybe they don't know what it is just yet, but I know that they're on the cusp of something great. And so I always want to be that person that's uplifting them and giving them that platform.
I think it's important to reiterate too that we don't go theme shopping, right? We don't necessarily reach out for films that are necessarily saying something and we're like, okay, great, this is our identity for the year. We typically let our submissions pool speak to us. We don't group films until after selection. So I think it's very important, because some film festivals work that way, but we don't. So thank you for iterating that. So Clint, can you let us know how do you approach deciding whether or not if you're going to bat for a film?
Yeah, I think that what Tishon said around potential is really meaningful to me, and it's something that I feel really strongly kind of defines our process, programming for potential. And I think by that, Tishon, you said it really well, but it's also a willingness to take risk on film, on filmmakers, and on films that might not be fully baked or might be messy, but have a really exciting point of view, or a film that is really representative of an artist's voice that you can sense and feel when you're watching it. No one is excited by a film that is just an exercise in making a movie. That is boring and is not something that we are excited to share with someone. But when you see something that really ignites something in you and wants you to share it with someone else, you know you found something that is worth advancing. I also am constantly thinking in the process of impact and how this film will land with an audience. Will it spark reflection? Will it inspire action? Will it, help to shift thought or make someone uneasy or uncomfortable or excited or sad? Like, what is its impact to move someone? I think is really an important part of what any art does. And so we look for that in film too when we're making our decisions.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I also wanted to say something that Clint said too, which I think is so important, is taking risks. And we have taken, I wouldn't say necessary risk, but we have taken the extra step in finding a film, again, that may be a little messy, but at the end of the day, we're like, no, there really is something there. And I think we should really give this person a chance. And there's nothing more beautiful than being able to do that and just watch their expression as they are like, oh my God, thank you so much for taking the chance on me, because you never really know what you're setting that person up for by just giving them that space and giving them the opportunity to be involved in something. And so I definitely think, and what I love about our festival is that we do take the risk, and we're happy to really help emerging filmmakers take that leap into the world of bigger filmmaking, and then watching their careers grow just by being a part of our festival is, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I'll just, y'all have said it like beautifully, and I think I'll just add, as an artist, as an artist and a programmer, I recognize there's like nothing new under the sun. And so what excites me as an artist is not necessarily the story, but the perspective of the filmmaker, the perspective of the storyteller that makes me excited about creating. It makes me feel inspired, and I feel like those are the movies, or those are the films or bodies of work that move me. I also love experimental, which is like a very, messy. I think everything can be experimental, whether it's a feature film, a short film, whatever. I think that what I really appreciate about films that are experimenting or that are creatively bold is that we're using new forms of creativity in terms of the form that makes the function, not just having something really cool and pretty just cause, right? When I recognize that a creative execution is actually lending to the storytelling, it helps me just connect deeper to not only the story, but this is the mind of the filmmaker itself. And I'm always excited to kind of like explore the mind of people through their stories and then meet them after and be like, yo, like I was right or I was not right. But either way, those are really exciting moments when I'm, screening films. And I also love films that make me justifiably uncomfortable, right? I don't like films that are just gratuitously just like out there doing what it's doing, but like if again the scene or something that you're exploring is making me uncomfortable, but it's to an end, I love those films, right? And films that people tend to shy away from. So just wanted to add that to what I think makes a strong film or a good fit. So yeah. So okay. I'm realizing I'm actually going back and forth between programmer and curious filmmaker. So that's why I'm like going back with the question. So okay, I know about the process. I know what you all appreciate about films. And I'm understanding that the selection process is rigorous. It goes through many people, and it seems like it takes a long time. Like, how do you recommend that as a filmmaker, if I haven't heard anything after a while, like, how do I check into my submission status? Should I follow up with an email? How do I like cut through the silence of possibly not hearing anything from y'all as you're reviewing Tishon? Because you are the person who actually gets our email, our NOFF email. So please be kind to her. So yeah, Tishon.
So yeah, don't send an email. Again, with the emails, you don't have to send an email. We have our notification date listed on the website. So from the time or date, whenever you decide to send something up until the notification date, like I normally wouldn't expect to hear anything from the festival. And I think that goes for other festivals as well. I don't know, maybe I could be wrong, but yeah, you don't have to send an email. We'll notify you through Film Freeway. So just double check, I guess, during the week of notification dates, your submission status will change. But again, once we do update submission statuses, you should get an automated email from Film Freeway, and then you also receive an email from us. But between now and then, don't worry about it. We got you. We see you. We understand. Sharing your art is very vulnerable, and a lot of us are not patient people. I am not a patient person. I'm working on it. But I can promise you and assure you that your film is in good hands. And regardless of what the status may be, what the outcome may be, you will receive an answer from us, but no emails. And if there is something wrong, like with your film, like say, oh, a link is broken or something needs to be updated, I will personally reach out to you. I get notified of that all throughout the screening process from the programmers and the screeners alike. And so I will be sure to notify you and let you know that, hey, there's something wrong. Can you send us an updated link? Can you send us an updated password? And sometimes some filmmakers are really great and they will shoot me an email and say, hey, I noticed someone from another festival said that my screener link isn't working. I just want to let you know that it's been updated. And then that way I can pass on the word to our programmers and our screeners. And outside of those circumstances, it's okay to not email because we will notify you of what's happening when the time comes.
What about if I've had a significant update to my film since I've submitted it? How do you recommend that I indicate that?
Clint, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I mean, I think this is a complicated question because what we see happen a lot is on Film Freeway, you upload your film, and if you make an update, you have a new cut, you can just upload it directly and replace that existing file. We cannot guarantee that if we've already seen that first cut, we will have the capacity or time to watch that second cut. If it advances, for example, to the second round and say the first cut was watched in the first round, obviously, if you've replaced it, the second round view will be of the new cut. But we're not going to go back and rewatch a different cut of the film. I mean, you would have to resubmit the film in order to do that. And the reality is, I don't think difference in a cut is going to drastically change our team's, perception of the film. Usually like updates are related to color correction or final, score or, sound mix, stuff like that, which I feel like doesn't really make or break our decisions. We're so accustomed to seeing films that do not have final sound mix or do not have final color correction. It's not really a determining factor in the process.
And I will say, I think that maybe the best way forward, if you are submitting a film that you feel like is going to have an update, maybe indicate that in Film Freeway, if there's like temp color, temp kind of soundtrack, so that as the programmers are reviewing it, they can keep that in mind. But yeah, thank you for that, Clint. All right, so we went through the screening process, the screening squad, the programmers. We talked about, how each of us responds to films. And now we've made our decisions. Tishon, can you explain a little bit about how our notification process goes?
Oh, notification days are so much fun. We have to do a lot of stuff on the back end to get things ready for notifications. A lot of it entails just making sure that everything aligns with what I might have in a spreadsheet somewhere. That also aligns with Film Freeway, making sure that I am going inside Film Freeway and updating all of the judging statuses so that all of the filmmakers can be alerted to what their notification is, and then really just scheduling all of the emails that are going to go out. So we have selected films, finalist films, and then films who ultimately were not selected. So it's really just a lot of work in making sure that everything is tight, everything is up to date, that there are no little strings not attached or anything, and that we're all working as tightly and as greatly as we can to make sure that everybody receives a response from us. And, there are times when things do slip through the crack. Ultimately, technology is technology and will continue to be technology. And we definitely strive to make it a priority to fix that as soon as the situation is made aware to all of us on the programming team. But we do take quite a few days to make sure that everyone gets a notification by the date that is listed on our Film Freeway page. And there might be some instances as well where something outside of our control might happen that may push our notification date back. And I do believe that Film Freeway might send you an email when that happens. Or some people just happen to check and they'll send an email like, hey, you said notification date was the 13th, but it's 14th. I haven't seen anything. And to that, I would say, oh, hey, we had a power outage at the office. And so we're trying to wait until that comes together or what have you. But again, it's very rare that stuff kind of happens. Knock on wood that doesn't happen this year. But we do work hard to make sure that everyone gets an answer in a timely manner.
And I think in addition to getting everything ready on the back end, one of the things that we do is draft personalized notifications for a lot of folks. Clint, do you want to talk more about that as far as how we notify folks? I think that's something that a lot of folks have commented as far as our organization that does it a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I mean, we've spoken about this a little bit, but we really do. This process becomes our life for months. We are watching your work. We are discussing your work. Sometimes we're having to watch it multiple times and have multiple fights over, your film and whether or not your film is going to take one of these slots. And so when it doesn't work out for us to select that film, it's really difficult on us as well. I know rejection is not easy, but we try when possible to reach out and let filmmakers who've submitted work that has really impacted us, try to let them know what that impact was. Um, Obviously, there are, thousands of films that are submitting, so that process is really difficult and we don't always have the time and capacity, but it's something that we have started in the past couple of years, and our intention is to do that as much as possible to let films know the impact it's had on us. I also was reading an interview with a film programmer, Celeste Wong, who talked about the importance of normalizing rejection in this field. And I think that as, I don't know, I hope that doesn't sound crass, but I think that it's important. I mean, we have all been rejected. And if you are going to make a film and submit it to film festivals, you will be rejected. You will be rejected by a lot of film festivals. And that is part of the process. It does not mean that your voice doesn't matter. It does not mean that your work doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we hated your film. There's this misperception that if we like your film, we accept it. If we don't like your film, we reject it. And it's so much more nuanced than that. It is a process that um, you know, is difficult to make work, and we do the best we can. We also acknowledge that we are people, and this is a flawed process. This is a very subjective process, and we do the best we can to select the films that we feel are best suited for that year's festival. And we are not going to say these are the best films. This is the cream of the crop. Those are not phrases, or it's not the kind of approach we have. We are selecting the films that we think are best suited for the festival in a given year. So um, I do think that if you're going to make films and you're interested in sharing them with people and with film festivals, you should expect rejection. It's part of the process.
I guess in addition to rejection and like having personalized, I guess, emails about rejection, do you offer feedback for rejected films? Do we offer feedback for rejected films, Tishon? Let's say it again.
No, we do not. We get so many emails as well after rejections have been sent out where folks are like, hey, well, can you tell me what's wrong so that me and my team can go fix it? And it's just like, sometimes it's not necessarily a problem that can be fixed. Maybe it was just that, like, at the end of the day, it just didn't go past a certain level. And like, that's that. Like, I can't really give you what you're looking for in order to make you feel better, because again, that's going to be different for every single person that approaches us and asks us what can be done differently, or I don't understand and you're missing out. Like it's a lot. But no, we don't give feedback, because again, if I give feedback to one person, I have to give feedback to hundreds of other people. And it could be a thing too where maybe your film wasn't assigned to me, so I haven't seen it, so it's like I can't really tell you what's wrong with it or give feedback to that point. But yeah, no, we don't give feedback.
I want to add that just because your film is not selected doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It just means
Exactly.
we didn't select it. And we're not saying that, we're only showing the best films. I mean, your film can be amazing and perfectly great and doing what it should be doing, but just because we're saying no, it's not selected, does not necessarily mean that there's something wrong with it that can be fixed. Also, by us, you have to understand that by us taking your film, it would mean not taking another film, So it's just a constant like um, negotiation of which films to provide a slot for and which films not to. And it's a very, very difficult and painful process for us. And I understand it's painful for those who are being vulnerable enough to share their work with others, but we don't enjoy the process either, just to be very, very clear.
So okay, my film was rejected, and I am really just, I guess, brokenhearted, right? In terms of me being rejected. Like, what's the best way, or what's the best way that you've seen a follow-up in terms of a film being rejected? And also, could I submit the same exact film next year? In terms of like, having it be reconsidered. So two-part question, maybe y'all can take it either way, but first question is, what's the best follow-up that you've gotten from a rejection? And what do you recommend as far as a filmmaker who's interested in resubmitting that same film for the next year?
The best response that I've gotten is just someone just simply saying, thank you for taking the time to consider me. I hope you have a great rest of the festival season, and maybe I'll try again next year, or I'm working on something else, so maybe I'll submit next year. I'll see y'all that's it. Is just someone who can simply say thank you for your time, and I hope to see you around again sometime soon. It doesn't need to be any more elaborate than that, because I think the thank you encompasses all that needs to be said. And in terms of submitting a film that has already been submitted in a previous year, I honestly would say don't waste your time and or money. I mean, unless it's a completely different film than what you previously submitted, I would say don't, yeah, definitely don't stress yourself to submit it again. We've had that quite a few times where I might have seen something last year that came up this year, and I'm like, I've seen this film before. I think it definitely submitted last year. And then I'm like, okay, I check my notes. Is anything different? It doesn't really seem like it. So I'm not really quite sure how to move forward with it. But yeah, I personally wouldn't truly recommend unless you feel like you've made one of the greatest changes to the film. But nah, I don't think so.
How about you, Clint? Anything to add? Especially if, do we care what year the film was made? If it was made in 2020, could I submit it this year?
We do have a time cutoff. I mean, we're looking for, new films, and Tishon, I think that is it 2020. It's 2 years prior to the start of the submission cycle, so that would be 2023, I
Yeah.
guess.
Any films that are made on or past June 1st, 2023, I do believe that's our cutoff for new films.
Do we have a premiere status at all? Like, do we care who has seen it first, or like what's the deal with that in terms of being premiered?
We have no interest in being the first to, or I shouldn't say no interest, but we do not feel proprietary over any kind of premiere status at all. I find it personally to be really harmful to filmmakers to enforce that. I want your film to connect with as many audiences as possible. And if it means, you have to screen at 3 festivals that accepted your film before ours, go for it and enjoy those experiences. We are not a festival that really depends on premiere status or is only interested in new films and trying to claim them as being the discovery of these films. That's not how this works, and I find that a little frustrating that festivals do kind of fight over premiere status. But by all means, go for it if you have another opportunity. Will not stand in the way.
All right, so we talked about rejection, the wah part, but let's say we got selected, which we hope that is the experience of filmmakers. What can I expect after getting my notification that I've been selected in terms of follow-up, in terms of, yeah, let's just talk from there. In terms of follow-up, what can I expect with what you're gonna need to move me forward?
So once you've been selected, congratulations. We will send an email to let you know, and we'll also include a bunch of other important details that you should also be aware of. So, for example, we will move forward. We have this accepted filmmaker form that we'll have you fill out, and it's really just getting all of the nitty-gritty details about your film, about yourself, about your cast, your crew, trailers, film stills, anything that we would necessarily need in order to move forward in solidifying that you will be a part of the festival. We'll go ahead and gather it using that form. And then from there, it's really just a timeline of making sure that you are compatible with our accessibility requirements that are also listed on our film preview page, as well as our website. And last year we did a great Zoom for filmmakers with the head of our tech department, Lynn Sullivan, who was able to talk with filmmakers and just, like this we're doing now. She was like, hey, if you have any questions about captions, about anything detailing accessibility, color grading, whatever, she's like, just ask me now. And so I thought that was really helpful for filmmakers moving forward in the process. And yeah, we'll just work with you closely. You'll get a lot of emails from me. So we're going to be best friends by the end of this process. But yeah, you'll work really closely with me as well as Clint, in just ensuring that we have everything that we need up into the date of your screening.
Cool. So, okay, we're selected. We got our assets in. We're in there. And I will say, like, as a filmmaker, in addition to looking forward to just a great time to meeting programming staff and other festival staff that truly care about your films, and just having a great time at our festival, we pay our filmmakers for their screening. So featured film, and correct me if I'm wrong, our feature for every feature slot we pay $250, right? And for a short film, we pay $125. So what if I submit, let's say, 2 shorts? Do I get, Clint, maybe you can give us a little bit more illumination about screening and travel stipend. How would that work if I submitted like multiple films? What would be some of the perks or some of the assistance that I can use to attend the festival?
Well, if you submit 2 films, we'll consider both films. We
Or
don't
we select two
have,
films, sorry. I'm sorry.
right, okay. I say both because we all often get multiple submissions from individuals, and we have no limitation to the number of films from an individual that we select. It really doesn't come into our process at all. So you're more than welcome to submit as many films as you'd like. And we have certainly, I think we showed 3 films from one filmmaker in one year, several years ago, but it was rare, but that certainly happens. In terms of, yes, you'll get, for every film that is selected, you get a screening fee. And for any out of town filmmakers, we also provide a travel stipend of around $250. Um, and so, yes, doing the math, it gets a little, I don't know, figure that out. However many films you have times the screening fee plus the travel stipend if you're out of town. So we try to take care of our filmmakers as much as possible. Obviously, we give you a pass. We try to connect you to visiting industry, other peer filmmakers who will be at the festival. We are very fortunate to be a festival that is well attended by filmmakers and industry. So it is a great opportunity to build your professional networks. And we have a really engaged audience at our festival. So it's also an incredible, chance to really connect with who you made this film for and be in conversation through Q&As and then post-screening time to engage with audiences.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that we should definitely kind of like reiterate, because a lot of filmmakers don't get paid for their screening fee. Some festivals are like, you got in, that's your payment, right? But we love to support your craft, support your art, and yeah, it's hard out here. So I'm really proud to be part of an organization that pays their artists. So thank you for mentioning that. So I guess our parting kind of thought, and I think this is, any of us can jump in. I've learned about the process. I've learned about the festival. I've submitted. I learned like, everything in and out. Like, why, in your opinion, should I attend, this film festival as a filmmaker? I mean, I can start if that helps us get going. Okay, cool. So I will say that my journey with the film festival started in 2018 when I was an exhibiting filmmaker. And I've been part of the Filmmaker Services Labs as well through Emerging Voices as well as South Pitch. And as a filmmaker, I always found a really special place in my heart for the festival. I met a lot of my community and had a lot of my opportunities through this festival and have since started working here. So obviously I love it. And I think that one of the main reasons why I love attending this festival is that it does have an international reach, but has a very local feel. It has a very community rooted feel. And I've been to various industry kind of geared festivals and felt, and this is just my personal experience, have felt isolated and has felt kind of like small fish, big pond kind of thing. And I would say this is a great kind of blend between the two, where you're meeting folks from like, big industries, from studio execs to grantors or, stakeholders in the arts community, as well as like, a filmmaker who's 19 just made their first film, right? And just meeting folks who are from the community, nurses, garbage people, like anyone who's coming to the festival, you're meeting so many different people from different class, different background, different experience. And that has been just very integral in my life, not only as a human, but as an artist. So I feel like anyone who wants to, again, have the connection to industry, learn about new opportunities, as well as connect with community and be inspired by just your average everyday, cinephile, New Orleans Film Festival is the place. And I do recommend that you submit and hopefully you get in. But yeah, what do y'all think? What's the reason that personally you feel would be a great raw point?
I think everyone should submit to New Orleans Film Festival because it is probably one of the most personable festivals that I've ever had the opportunity to partake in. It literally feels like everybody knows everybody, all of the staff knows filmmakers, like everybody feels like one big family, and it just feels like one big family reunion every festival. And I love being on the sidelines and watching a filmmaker, again, who might have made their first film, like get in touch with someone who's been a veteran in the industry for years or decades, and just watching them come together to form a relationship and know that that will be a long-standing relationship is very inspiring to me. And just also being located in New Orleans doesn't, it's not too bad. I think New Orleans is a great backdrop for film, as we are one of the leading industries within the country. And I mean, we're a top 50 coolest film festivals, top 50 film festivals worth 50. And I definitely think our work speaks to that. And I think you'll have no other better experience than being with us here and having your film screened here. And I think the one thing that I also love is that we will take care of you as a filmmaker. And there are so many other things outside of film that we're offering to you. And just knowing that when you do have a film shown here, it's going to be met with an audience who is just as curious as you are, who is very interested in watching something that maybe they didn't really want to watch or wasn't really sure about, but afterwards being able to have it screen and then being able to meet the filmmaker after and talk to them and be like, oh my God, like I loved your film. This is great. Like, do you want to go for a coffee? Or, it's amazing the connections that are being formed here and just how well cared for filmmakers. I have plenty of filmmakers tell me they're like, no other festivals really cared for me in the way that y'all have. And so I think that really speaks to why you should submit your film and come visit us. What about you, Clint?
I mean, y'all said it so beautifully. I don't know if I have anything more to add. I think it's a really warm festival, one that really, like you're both saying, cares a lot about the filmmaker experience. And, we're always thinking of our audience as well. Like, what do we want to share with our audience? And who do we want to fill these seats? And how do we do that? And um, I don't know. Every year, year after year, it really energizes me and motivates me to keep going and do this work because it is just a very special community of individuals who gather to celebrate this art form and its potential and all that it can do. And I, um, I find it to just be a really, really special experience. So I would love for you to share your work, and we would love to see it and consider it. And maybe one day you'll be part of that festival. And even if your work isn't selected, that doesn't mean you can't still attend and be part of the festival in other ways. We try to really provide opportunities for everyone to have an access point, whether that is through our free panel programming, or whether that is through our festival offerings, our screenings, everything else that we offer. There's an opportunity for you to be part of the festival, even if your work isn't formally screening as part of it.
And one thing y'all didn't mention is we have legendary parties. I mean, y'all check our receipts, check our social media history. We not only know how to throw a great exhibition, but we are some folks that throw a really great party. So we're looking forward to your submissions. Those of you who are rejected, please keep submitting. Please keep, being part of our, community programming or anything else that we have going on. And those who are selected in the future, I hope to see you at our upcoming festival. This does conclude our first virtual panel. If we haven't answered any of the questions that you had in this hour and a half panel, please drop your questions in our comments, and we'll try our best to either respond in the chat, or if we have enough of these questions, we'll go live and answer some of those questions with y'all in a live session. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing your films.